In order to have a campaign, you must have strategies. Strategies help you get organized.
You want to make sure you sit down as a group, identify what your goals are for your Common Core campaign, identify what your resources are, how many volunteers you have, what kind of funding you have.
Well, you can't work on an issue campaign without a strategy. You have to have the plan put together.
The first step of a campaign for your strategies is to have goals. You have to have long-term goals, intermediate goals, and short goals. This helps you to decide what you're going to do as you're developing those campaigns.
The difference is a short-term goal can be something easy to obtain and you feel like you've met that goal. It can keep your motivation going towards your cause and what you're trying to, the outcome. A short-term goal could be something as getting a meeting with a decision maker and having that scheduled and set up. Intermediate goals are something that we're working on currently. It could be something that you're working on is getting the curriculum aligned to the standards to get into the schools so our kids will be college and career ready. A long-term goal is going to be have all of our students college and career ready.
You have to have 3 different goals because you want like an immediate goal. It sort of gratifies you. Oh, look what we've been able to do. We got a phone call back from a school board member. And then you have an intermediate goal, and then you have the ultimate goal, which is the issue resolved.
Short term chips away at the intermediate, which heads towards our long-term goals.
As you're developing those strategies, it keeps volunteers motivated and it helps you celebrate small victories. The second strategy is organizational considerations. You got to decide whether you have the resources to do it. You have to look at your immediate constituents that you have and what you're doing at that time. If you've got a big convention going on, whether or not you're going to have the time to do it.
Recognize your weaknesses, because that's important that you don't try to say you're going to run all these commercials, but you don't have funding to record commercials.
Your third strategy is very critical. You have to think about who your constituents are, who your allies are, and who your opponents are. Your constituents is usually your people, and whether or not they are in favor of what kind of campaign that you're going to do or what kind of strategy you're going to do.
The power of numbers is very important. Of course, just like with PTA, if you see that there's hundreds of thousands of people that are backing an issue, you have substance on that issue.
As you're doing your work on Common Core, it's important for PTAs to consider forming or joining coalitions. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're volunteers, so it's good to get as many people involved as possible.
A coalition is a group of different organizations that are working for a common cause.
It's important that you identify your opponents when you're working on your Common Core strategy. You need to know what groups are working against you so that you can counteract them, their message, their negative message with your own positive message.
It's an advantage to work in a coalition when you're trying to get media coverage because everyone has different contacts in the community and sources that they use to get the information out. And so by being collaborative, you have a higher chance of reaching a greater volume of people.
Well, the biggest challenge in working in coalition is finding the happy medium, coming to a compromise.
Sometimes the groups have different opinions on other matters, but can come together on Common Core.
So anytime that you're working with a group of people, you have differences. You have people that have a specific opinion that believe a certain way and believe that their way is the only way. And so certainly compromise is key.
You have to remember that these groups have other things they're working on as well, just like PTA is working on other things like family engagement or bullying. These other groups are working on other topics as well, and you have to respect their time.
Part of a coalition would certainly include working with all of the people in your group and making sure that the correct credit was given where it was due. So if I was involved with the process and I did 80% of the work, that doesn't mean I get 80% of the credit.
every group does have their own background and their own priorities. You want to make sure that you're partnering with groups whose missions and goals at least mesh with PTAs so that there's not conflict or potential problems down the road. It's important in your coalitions that every group involved is encouraged to send people who can make decisions for that group. You want people who can make decisions who are stable, long-time people with the group, not interns or students who are maybe just there helping out. You really want to encourage people to be high level so that things can get done quickly.
The fourth strategy is to identify who your decision makers are, who's going to help you get what you want.
An elected official or decision maker is one of the individuals who are going to help bring about change.
One of your goals is if you want to get proper curriculum that will match your Common Core state standards in your own district, you would probably want to go to your curriculum and instruction superintendent, or it might be called director.
The way you select a decision maker kind of depends on the makeup of your state. In our state, the State Board of Education decides on standards.
Parents should talk to administrators and curriculum directors because those are individuals within the school locally who are making the implementations of the standards.
Our legislators at the local and state level certainly would be someone that we would identify as a person that we would want to talk to regarding the Common Core state standards.
It's important for parents to work with all kinds of different decision makers at the local level. You need to meet with school superintendents to share PTA's position on Common Core and see what it is that parents can do to help with implementation, how you can share the information about Common Core with other parents. And you can meet with curriculum directors to help make sure that the curriculum being introduced is appropriate.
Obviously, parents are the ones that are voting for these people, and they care about their constituents. So it's very important that constituents make their voices heard to their elected officials because they're the decision makers. They're the ones that make the laws. They're the ones that set things in place, and we can have a lot of influence over them by using our voices.
The fifth strategy is to create tactics. Tactics are things that you have to do in order to get your Common Core standards activated and get it going.
Once I've decided on all of the pieces that need to come together, then I would certainly need to plan an event.
When you're planning the tactics of your campaign, it's important to include social media.
We need to remember there's all types of different social media that you can use. It could be anything from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the way to actually meeting with newspaper people or television people.
Social media has helped us be the bearer of good information and resources for our parents, and that's been very important to us as a state.
We use Facebook, we're on Twitter, we've just created Pinterest, and we're actually investigating Instagram as well.
Traditional media is very important. You can reach out to a lot more people than just your constituents.
Social media is so important when you're working on your Common Core efforts. Parents are different ages now. I have friends who are just having their children. My children are practically grown. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out to parents in a way that they communicate. A lot of younger parents don't use email. They use Facebook, they use Twitter, they go to YouTube to get information, they look at Pinterest. So you want to make sure you're utilizing all of these ways to communicate.
National PTA has some resources on the website that will help a PTA walk through step by step on creating a Facebook page or even starting out with Twitter. You can also contact your state PTA. A lot of times your state PTA already has a Facebook page or Twitter experience, and they can share some links that way too.
When you're going to meet with the decision maker, it's important that the people attending the meeting get together beforehand and determine what roles everyone's going to have. You also want to make sure that everyone's got a consistent message, that you stick to PTA's particular points to ensure that the message is consistent.
It's important to go in with a plan and have an idea of who's going to do what and how that outcome is going to come about.
When you're going into a meeting, we need to make sure that we're demonstrating our power, that they understand that there is power behind us, and the numbers speaks volumes. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are backing our position, and we want them to understand that we have people who support us, and this is why they should hear what we have to say in order for them to make a well-informed decision.
Well, when you arrive at the meeting too, it's important to share your power to say, when I go to a meeting, I always say, my name is Tammy Bartles, I'm the president of Kansas PTA. I'm here representing our 18,000 plus members, so that they know how many people are behind the statements you're making.
Well, part of the preparation in preparing to speak with decision makers is to definitely do your research, to have statistics, to also try to get a coalition to go with you, to have the different angles to be able to speak about, and to just sometimes even have a personal story to just kind of drive it home.
PTA is about advocacy. PTA is about standing up for every child with one voice. And in order to do that, we have to get our elected officials involved. And so it's really important for them to understand the value of what we're doing.